For some trauma survivors, walking into a haunted building is less terrifying than sitting alone in silence. And neuroscience explains why. There is a strong overlap between trauma survivors, especially veterans, and paranormal investigation. And here's the answer people don't expect. It's not because they're chasing fear, adrenaline, all that. It's because their nervous system already knows how to survive it. And I'm not even speaking metaphorically, I'm literally speaking neurologically. Paranormal investigations involve uncertainty, risk, heightened awareness, controlled environments, team structure, and clear exit points, right? There's an end to it. And for certain nervous systems, particularly those shaped by combat or chronic threat, that combination can feel regulating rather than destabilizing. And that does not mean that paranormal investigation is therapy per se, but it does mean that there is a clinical explanation for why some people find it grounding rather than overwhelming. And today's episode is about that explanation. It's about trauma, emotional flashbacks, and why so many people think that they're broken when in reality their nervous system is doing exactly what it learned to do. And yes, we're going to talk about the paranormal, of course, but we're going to do it through the lens of neuroscience, psychology, and evidence-based trauma treatment. And later in the episode, we'll also talk about why so many people with trauma histories identify as intuitive or empathic, psychics or mediums. And that overlap is neurological. It's not mystical. It's not pathological. This episode is educational. It's not therapy. And I'm not suggesting paranormal investigation as a solo treatment, although it can be therapeutic. What I am doing is explaining why certain experiences make sense once we understand how the nervous system adapts to threat. I'm a mental health therapist licensed in New York State. I work with trauma, PTSD, complex trauma, dissociation, dissociative identity disorder, anxiety, depression. I work with people who describe their internal experiences as sudden, intense, and difficult to explain, almost like they're being flooded. And then they're being described by others as dramatic or too much. And it leads to many of these people feeling like they're broken, but they're actually responding exactly as a nervous system would under stress. And trauma is not defined by how bad something looks from the outside, right? Like a lot of clients will be like, I think I've had trauma, but I wasn't being shot at. Doesn't matter. Trauma is defined by how the nervous system experienced an event and how it gets stored. So clinically, trauma is an experience that overwhelms the nervous system, and that person lacked sufficient safety, control, a sense of control, or support around them. And then when that happens, the brain shifts into survival mode. Two people can experience the same traumatic event. One system may process it and the other system may store it. And the difference is about capacity and context, not character. So trauma is not what happened. It's what the nervous system couldn't finish processing. There's a marvelous book for veterans, about veterans, by a veteran, by Tim O'Brien called The Things They Carried. And it explains this so well that when they're in combat, it's not like they're going to stop and process what just happened, what horrific thing they just witnessed right then and there. They process it later when they get home, when the nervous system is more relaxed, hence flashbacks and flooding. One of the most important distinctions in trauma psychology is that trauma memories are stored differently than ordinary memories. Non-traumatic memories involve narrative, time awareness, context. Trauma memories rely more heavily on sensation, emotion, survival responses. This is why trauma reactions often show up without a clear story, right? The body keeps the score. Another fantastic must-read book. People will say, I don't know why I feel so bad right now. Nothing is happening. This doesn't even make sense. But from a brain perspective, it's not that confusing. It's literally just sequence of events. The body reacts first and the mind will explain later, if it even can. Trauma shows up in sensation in the body before it shows up in words and makes sense. Hence flashbacks. Emotional flashbacks are Sudden shifts into states like fear, shame, panic, helplessness, grief, they often occur without visual memory, and that's key. They don't feel like the way remembering feels. They feel like we're being flooded or overtaken. Neurologically, the amygdala, that's that guy back here, detects a threat based on pattern, and the prefrontal cortex goes partially offline. The nervous system reacts as if the threat is happening right now. There's no timestamp, right? Like that's similar to grief. Somebody could have died 10, 20, 30 years ago, and we still respond with the same sadness or the same emotional reaction as if it was yesterday when we do think about it, because the heart doesn't have a calendar, it does not know what time it is. Emotional flashbacks are memory without a timestamp. And people often interpret these reactions as loss of control because that's what it feels like. They think I should be past this. Now I'm overreacting and something is wrong with me now. But the nervous system doesn't operate on insight. It operates on pattern recognition. If your system learned certain dynamics were dangerous, it will respond automatically. Insight doesn't override like survival wiring. That's why survival wiring is probably to blame for, like, when we say, how come we can't hyper focus on good memories? I'm always ever hyper focusing on bad memories. That's survival. That's evolution, right? Like if we're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, we're not just going to be like, I did a really good job. Like I'm going to not have to worry about that again because I survived this one time. That is coming for you tomorrow again and again and again. Our brains learn to constantly stay, not to that extent. For some people, it's more so than others, but there is that more tendency towards survival mode. And when I use the word haunted, I'm not being poetic. I'm literally being descriptive. It means that something unresolved continues to haunt or influence the present. And trauma responses are not malfunctions, they're adaptations. And hypervigilance meant attention keeping you safe. Numbing meant feeling everything would have been too much. And dissociation meant escape wasn't possible. So maybe you went to a different part of your brain during trauma. Trauma actually changes the way the brain can learn when somebody is still developing. It greatly influences the way someone learns or retains information. And people who have experienced trauma sometimes are far more in tune, intuitive, psychic, those types of things, because maybe the part of the brain that they dissociated to also includes a lot of awareness of things that the rest of the brain can't see or isn't aware of, things that we haven't been able to explain yet. Trauma responses often intensify during hormonal shifts, fatigue, chronic stress, life transitions, and periods of increased safety. As I stated earlier, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. That last one really surprises people. When the nervous system finally senses safety, it may release what it was holding back. And the nervous system releases what it couldn't afford to feel before. It wasn't the right time. The bullet hits now, but it hurts more later. So paranormal investigation, again, is not therapy in a clinical sense, but there are some clinical reasons why people with trauma, particularly combat-related PTSD, are drawn to it. Combat PTSD often involves hypervigilance, persistent threat detection, difficulty downshifting in calm environments. These are learned survival responses. For some trauma survivors, calm doesn't feel peaceful. It feels unfamiliar. In trauma treatment, exposure-based therapies work because when someone can approach fear with control and predictability and safety, the nervous system can update, levels up. And exposure involves choice, huge one, structure, so clear beginnings and clear endings, and a sense of agency. Exposure works when fear rises and then falls without catastrophe. It's like the brain can relearn that it's okay to be afraid and then come back down and nothing bad will happen. The brain needs to relearn that. Paranormal investigation often includes a chosen entry point, theme structure, find exit points, ending, time limited exposure, no actual threat. And this allows the nervous system to experience activation and then resolution. And trauma often involves activation without resolution. Paranormal investigation is not appropriate for everyone with PTSD. Without preparation and regulation, fear-based exposure can worsen symptoms. Exposure without safety is not therapy, it's repetition, it's re-traumatizing. There is a real overlap between trauma histories and people who identify as intuitive or empathic or psychic. That overlap is not automatically mystical or pathological by default. Trauma often involves heightened sensory awareness, strong emotional attunement, rapid pattern recognition. These are adaptive survival skills. Again, that part of the brain that developed more in trauma might also include the ability to sense things that we can't see. And what people call intuition is often the nervous system predicting based on experience. But sensitivity without regulation feels overwhelming. Sensitivity with understanding or context just becomes information. So healing is not forcing calm, like get over it, or positive thinking or erasing the past. Healing is just updating the nervous system and reintegrating those memories in an adaptive way. And it's restoring choice and control. Healing is teaching the body what the mind already knows. The Body Keeps the Score, fantastic book. Trauma doesn't mean that you're broken. It means your nervous system adapted, and adaptation is not damage. You are not broken. You are responding. And with understanding and support, responses can change.